Okay, then. Good evening, y'all. It's a little after 6 p.m., Monday, the 13th of March. Uh, and we'll do as we normally do, see if we have any questions. Uh, if I can, just a quick recap. I'm trying to get better at that because we talked a little bit yesterday about a question that Charles had about uh, Jesus sending the disciples to get the coin the fish's mouth. We looked at that, and that may even turn into a good study at some point. We'll take a more detailed look at that at some point. We talked about an article that Bob saw sent to the teachers, and I thought was extremely interesting about the Roosevelts, and we got into that a little bit and talked about the significance of it and the opportunity there that was missed. Uh, and I readily admit it made me see him in a totally different light, something that had been hidden up until now, and I enjoy reading the article and getting that information. It's I hope we have come to a place where we realize the importance of the spirituality of what we do, that it is not just pertaining to Ron and Ron's life, the little things that I notice in my life, but as we grow and search for truth and seek truth and become more spiritual, the uncovering is just not uh, negative stuff such as the things we see in politicians and police shootings and that sort of thing, but everything is being revealed. So, little articles like that has been hidden for decades or have a spiritual significance as well. So all of that is being unleashed and the energy from it is being freed. So, but any questions and or comments uh, about anything spoken about yesterday? Nick said some interesting things on yesterday about the baby in the womb. We had a question. I asked a question on that, and I want to get with him when he gets back because I have some follow up stuff to ask him on that. But anything else? Anything you guys? Any questions and comments you may have? Okay. Okay. Well, I tell you what. Let's do this then. Uh, we were looking at yesterday Isaiah 58, and this was sparked from a question that Evelyn mentioned uh, Saturday when they talking about delighting in your heart, and we looked at that, and I just want to read these verses, and then we're gonna take a little journey here, okay? I'm gonna read verse 13 and 14 in Isaiah 58, and then I'll explain what we're doing, okay? Uh, if because of the Sabbath you turn your foot from doing your own pleasures in my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, and shall honor it, desisting from your own ways, from seeking your own pleasure and speaking your own words, then you will take delight in the Lord, and I will make you ride on the heights of the earth, and I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father. From the mouth of the Lord has spoken. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Excuse me. So we got into that yesterday, and we that was kind of sparked the question about that I asked, and trying to look at the heritage of Jacob, understand what that is, and so that kind of had me to look at back up into Genesis and look at Jacob's journey and his role that he plays in the blessings that were given by his father, and we looked at that a little bit yesterday. But to really get a grasp of this, we need to go a little further. And Pastor and I were talking about it because there's so much in this. Just looking at Jacob, Jacob is not Jacob, because that was the part that kind of stuck to me. He said the heritage of Jacob. It does not say the heritage of Israel. And so that what got my attention, because he's talking about a journey, and that journey is synonymous with our ancestors. So we backed up a little bit, and we're going to look at this starting from Terah, who was Abraham's father, and kind of walking this forward and there until we can understand fully what this is saying here. So, okay, so if you will, please, I'm gonna ask Pastor to kind of look at that from Genesis and bring us forward with that. And please stop us if you have any questions or comments, and let us know if it's making sense. Okay, Pastor.
I think
Please,
that
sir.
I think that if we are going to understand what is talking about the heritage of Jacob, we go back to the root of it, and in doing so, we have to tell the story of Abraham from from his father forward, and the way that story is told, that story has been related to us, rather. It has been related to us in a very natural, academic way, when in actuality, it is an allegory. And when we look at it from that perspective, we see something totally different. However, we see something that is very, very important for us to understand. Before I began to reveal the allegory, let's just talk about the story for a second. What we have here is Terah, Abraham's father, who is traveling with Abraham, and he stopped at Haran. And Abraham continues the journey, and Abraham ends up with Sarah, and then he and Sarah have a son named Isaac, and from Isaac comes Jacob and Esau, etc. Now, that's how the story has been related to us, and we've told that Abraham's name was changed and so was Sarah's. However, if you remember the story as we speak, this is what I'm being shown as the spiritual meaning of this allegory. Abraham's daddy name really means desert, a place in the desert. And Haran means a place in the desert. And Haran, the place where he stopped, means crossroads. So what is all of this telling us? We have been told that there comes a time in your life when you are engaged in religious practices, that you reach a spiritual drought, a place in the desert. And at that point that you reach that spiritual drought, you are at a crossroads. And now you have decisions to make. And the decision that you have to make is whether or not you're going to continue the journey in religion, or whether you're going to make a decision to embark upon a journey of spirituality, which means that you're embarking upon a journey to find yourself. Because that crossroads is not a man at a crossroads, it's you, it's me, it's all of us. We come to the same crossroads, and we have to make that decision. And when we make that decision to embark upon this spiritual journey, then our character is changed. In this, it says that in Abraham's name, our character is changed, And at the point that our characters changed, it is at that point we began to be guided by the Spirit itself, or by our internal spiritual desires to move in the direction of understanding who we are. And if you look at the name of Abraham, it says that he will be an exalted father. Abram, exalted father. Abraham, father of many nations. If you look at that from the meaning, from the words that father comes from in the Hebrew is abum. So what it's talking about is at the point where you began to embark upon this journey, you began to walk with abum. You become one with abum. You become one with the spiritual essence of your being and the creative forces of who you are. And in doing so, you recognize...
I have a question.
Yes?
So I know mentally I am not, my thoughts and everything has changed. I don't think the way I used to. I don't look at things the way I used to. So has my character changed and my name? Would I know? Okay, I'm jumping the gun. Okay.
I'm headed right to where you are, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome, my dear. Thank you. So when we see this, what do we see? We see the character has changed, and we see that there is a necessity not only for us to recognize who we are, but from a spiritual perspective, we began to see that the femininity is extremely important as we travel this journey. If you do not embrace the reality and the necessity of femininity, if you don't respect it, you will never, ever transcend religion and embark upon a spiritual journey. That will never happen. And this is shown in the allegory where it speaks about Abraham and Sarah. This is speaking to the concept that when you began to search for yourself, the first thing that you find is what was initially shown to the entity called Adam, that you are both masculine and feminine. And when Abraham's name changed with He, and Sarah is Sarah, which is He also, what it's saying is that you recognize the spiritual essence of who you are, which means that you are spiritually feminine and masculine. And as you travel this journey, you begin to recognize that you are in a position to embrace what you are being shown about yourself. And in embracing what you're being shown about yourself, there comes a period when you struggle with that. And the struggling with that is when you make mockery of that. And mockery not meaning you're laughing at it, making fun of it, but mockery in that you're asking yourself, is this real? Or should I believe this stuff that I'm being shown? Because all my life I've seen this totally different. That's Isaac. When it's called laughter, if you look deeper into what that means, it means to make mockery of something, or to look at something differently, or to look at something as though it's not real in your life. And that's what happens along this journey. And along this journey, when you get to that place of questioning whether or not this is real, then what happens is you have to find a happy medium at some point. And at the point that you find that happy medium, what happens is you begin to build a wall that between you and what you're seeing. In other words, you begin to look at religion and you hold it back from God in you, and you look at, and that's Jacob, the heel holder, to hold something back. You hold it back so that you can look clearly at what you're being shown. You never lose sight of religion. You always have that in your purview. But when you are shown the spiritual, now you are able to see religion alongside the spirituality. that's when you begin to see the true nature of your essence. You can't see the true nature of your essence if you don't have any spiritual inclinations at all, whether they be religious or spirituality. You have to have some spiritual inclinations in order for you to travel this journey or even to start this journey. And as you proceed along this journey, you get to a place where you become aware of who you are, and in your becoming aware of who you are, you begin to see something. What do you begin to see? You begin to see that you have the ability to share what you have been shown, and in doing so, you are bringing into existence a spiritual nation. And the spiritual nation that you are bringing into existence is not limited just to your kind in terms of your family. It's not limited to the people who look like you. It is bringing spirituality to everyone. And that is recognized when we see the Jacob and the Esau. Esau is termed as deemed to be the one who went into quote unquote Egypt and had a family there, and Jacob staying with the family structure, meaning that you travel the same journey, but you don't limit yourself to only sharing what you are being shown spiritually to those people who are within your circle. You share it with everyone. It doesn't matter about their race or gender. It doesn't matter about the economic status. It doesn't matter about their educational status. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is that you have recognized who you are. And now that you have seen that you are a spiritual being capable of sharing what you see about yourself to others, and them seeing as you have been shown, now they become as you are in terms of searching for themselves. And when they find themselves, what's developing here? A spiritual nation is being developed based upon what you sought for yourself. It expands far beyond you. So yes, Evelyn, your thoughts change. And when your thoughts change, your actions change. However, there are periods when you have to remind yourself that this is not something to be shown in terms of the spirituality, because there are periods in our lives when religion raises its head again, and we get upset with people about the slightest things, and we lose sight of the reality that things are as we desire them to be spiritually. However, it can blind us. We can be blinded to that because of what we have inside of us in regards to religion itself, and how we have been brought to this crossroads in life. So it is a continuous process to purge ourselves so that our thoughts and that our desires remain purely focused on the spirituality of humanity for the benefit of bringing the whole of humanity to this place of transition so that we can all walk in harmony. And what I'm often in this is saying that the allegory about Abraham is actually a spiritual story about what I'm speaking now. Are there any questions or comments about that? Evelyn, did that help you in your question?
Yes, sir. And you tell me if I'm wrong, because sometimes I feel a pull to go back into religion. And is that something that's happened? Is that normal to feel that way sometimes? Although I know I'm not going to go back, but then I can't say I won't go back because I don't know. But is that normal to feel that pull sometimes?
It's normal, Evelyn. Yes, it is. And it's going to be normal until you get freed from that desire. That's what I'm talking about when I say that when you have this feeling to be pulled back into religion, it is like, am I second guessing myself? Was I in the right place in the beginning? Things like that comes up.
That's the moment. Yeah, that's back to the Isaac phase of this energy that we're talking about.
The mark.
Yeah, the mark. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then what the thing that keeps you from going back is the Jacob aspect of it, because it holds you, holds you in the place where you are, and hold this desire that you are experiencing to go back into religion. It keeps it at bay from you and gives you a space where you have opportunity to make a clear decision as whether or not you're going to go back to where you were, or are you going to continue this journey. It is a type of Joshua experience. Choose you this day whom you're going to worship, the God on this side of the river or the God on the other side of the river. That's that Joshua experience that you're having at that moment. You have to make that decision. And quite frankly, that decision is not made one and you're done. That decision is a continuous process until you get to a place where you are not experiencing it as frequently. Then you get to the place where you don't experience it at all. Does that make sense, Evelyn?
It does, because I've been with you almost from the beginning with the foundation of faith. So, and that's been a while. So the pull is still there sometimes, but I hear you. And thank you for clearing that up for me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question.
It also describes Terah, his father. Terah was steeped in religion. He was made idols for different religions. So he was steeped in this. So this journey, if you look, he left Ur of the Chaldeans where he was from. He started on the journey. He started and stopped. He started and stopped. So the contemplation is in his head. Do I want to do this? Am I comfortable where I am? So, and it talks about the crossroad. That's in his head. Yes, this is all playing out in his head, and he dies in the desert.
But
so
that's where all of it started. Every one of us was steeped in religion. Every one of us were entities within the confines of the church or within the bounds of religion, where we made decisions, where we taught, where we were extremely active in these places. But what happened? We experienced a drought, a spiritual drought. We began to ask questions but were given no answers. We were in a desert and we were dying because we were thirsty for truth. We were thirsty for understanding. And we looked at the scriptures, and it did not seem as though there was any understanding there until we started researching the scriptures and looking at them for what was really being said, as opposed to the bastardized translations of it. And once we were able to see what was actually being said, it was not that difficult for us to embrace what was really being said, but it's very difficult for us to break ties with the religious settings that we were in because of family ties. Also, because we had been indoctrinated into this, not purposely for the purpose of manipulating us, but because our parents and their parents thought that we were doing the right thing. And their sincerity is what caused us to have the questions that we have. Their sincerity, there's no doubt in my mind that our journey is inextricably tied to those who transitioned before us, who were steeped in religion, and they were the ones who was pressing us with the questions. Because if you look at the scriptures, journey and ancestors are no different. They are one and the same in the word.
And that is why when you look at any of the genealogies, like a couple of them I can think of when we were looking at 1 Samuel, but I was also looking at Matthew, where it talked about Jesus, that genealogy, and some of those things are not positive. All of them are not God seeking, but what it is saying is those things that happen in your life that seem insignificant or seem like they turned you in a different direction, it made you think. It took you to a place that made you seek truth. So even those times of darkness or confusion or caused you to meditate and strengthened your desire to stay the course. So all of that is a part of your journey. And even the ancestors, as the pastor is saying, who were steeped in religion, who had no idea of what they were looking at, but because some of them couldn't read and write, but they were very sincere and had a strong desire to see God. So all of that is a part of the strength that we're riding on right now.
Are there questions about this?
Pastor, there's something else I want to say. Kind of bring you back a minute and to get you to talk about this. And this I hope also sounds very familiar to us. When Terah dies, is when God says to Abram, "Go forth," and the "go forth" says "Leki Leki," Lekhlekhah. It means to go for you or go to you. In other words, go and find yourself. That's the journey. Go and find yourself. And what we find is the journey is not about a guy named Ronald Lamar Johnson. The journey is truth, and truth contains all of mankind. Truth contains everybody who is a part of and seeking Elohim, who is on that journey. So the teaching and the learning is also synonymous because all of it is coming from the same source. So there, in looking at that, you see the expansion of who you are, and that too is at the end of this journey, or in the midst of this journey, is when you see that this thing called free will. The journey itself is the relinquishing of that free will, because there is no such thing in the spiritual as just one individual named Ron Johnson that you need to be concerned with. You're concerned with enlightenment, period. You're concerned with truth, period. So that includes all of mankind. So it is you who, when we speak the words, I'm going to relinquish my free will, that's you convincing yourself. You already are doing it when you step out on this journey.
Ron, the other thing, when you said Tehran, when Tehran dies, that was when Abram was told to go forth. It's almost like the point when that decision-making point that Pastor was talking about, when we make that decision, I am going to do something, I must do something different, I must travel another path. It's almost like that door closes. In other words, if it dies, it's no more available to you in that form. So it's almost like that door closes, and a lot of times Pastor will say, what's there to go back to? It's sort of like that's what happened when Tehran dies, that Abram was at that point. And all he could do was to follow the directive from Creator to go forth.
And you hit it right on the nail, Bob, because you remind me of something that I meant to say in that. Spiritually, it does not matter if he physically died. It could be saying that when Abram made up his mind that religion is dead to me, I cannot follow this anymore. That's when the principles that his father was following died in him, and God says, "Okay, now you've made a decision. You are not at the crossroads."
Exactly.
You see what I mean?
Thank you. Yes.
It's not be a physical death. There is one other point I wanted to make, and I want Pastor going to have to help me clean this up or explain it.
Before you go to that, whatever that, what it is. Let me interject this first, okay? When we
Thank
talk about dying, right?
Uh-huh.
Keep in mind that this allegory of the scriptures speak continuously about people who did not see with clarity until somebody died. When King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. This was not about a man dying as much as it was about something in Isaiah dying so he could see beyond the distractions that had blocked his view of who he is. Thank you. Go ahead, Ron.
Pastor, that was an excellent point, because when we were talking about that 6th chapter, the first verse, I think it was, it talks about in the year Uzziah died. It's something that happens within our lives, as you said, that gets our attention. We can remember where we were probably when the World Trade Center was hit. We can remember where we were if we were young enough when John F. Kennedy died. We can, with those significant things in our lives, are sort of like anchors that pull us from the ordinary, ordinary way that we've been automatic, if you will, automatic way we've been following along to get our attention. And so that's what I understand you to say just now, that for Isaiah, it was not necessarily the fact that Uzziah died, but it was how does Ron usually say it? It was a stone, it was something that reminded him of something changing in him.
Yes. That memorial. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question. So what does it mean when it says in order for something to die? How does that deal with what we're talking about tonight?
I didn't understand what you said, Evelyn.
I said, you know what it says, in order for something to live, something has to die?
Yeah.
How does that deal with what, is that the same thing what we're talking about tonight? And you said you don't have to die physically, but, it has to be a disconnect.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
When you think about it, whether it's physical or spiritual, something has to die for anything spiritual to exist. Whether it be the contradictions in your life, whether it be your desires in your life, whether it be your wealth, it doesn't matter. Something has to die to fertilize your movement. If you look at the plant world, something has to die. What dies? The plants die in order to fertilize themselves or other plants. That's why leaves fall from a tree. They are fertilizer. So the idea of death is not a bad thing at all. Something dying simply means we are making space for something to live. And the something to live is usually us. When something dies in you that was keeping you, that was your blind spot to who you are, that means that you are now able to live, because that contradiction, that blind spot died within you. When you are, even in relationships, you love somebody and they're mean to you, and that affection, you want to go, but you're so in love you don't, and you continue to endure that abuse until one day you say, you know what, love or not, I got to leave this. When you leave, the love is not necessarily dead. The affection dies as you leave it, or it dies before you leave. So what can happen? So you can see who you are and respect yourself and respect what you see as opposed to disrespecting it by allowing these things to happen to you. In religion, the concepts that we have been fed in religion must die in order for us to continue this journey and follow it as closely as we desire to follow it. If we try to play both sides against the middle, meaning that if we try to be religious influences within the confines of religion, using the principles and concept of religion to do that, and at the same time talk about traveling a spiritual journey to find yourself, then you'll only find contradictions because you really don't know who you are. Does that make sense, Evelyn?
It does. So when my mom was living, she had a strong hold on all of us. And I left the church when she was living, and it's been a while back, but I left religion, I'll say that. And is that the same thing we're talking about with Abraham? But he waited till his dad died, so that concept died. So,
and that's it, Evelyn. First of all, let me say this. When you wanted to go, when you felt the pull to go back, the very next time you went back to that setting, you saw you weren't missing a thing. That's number one. The next thing is, you can't look at Abraham's daddy as being a human being. They were given these proper names to tell a spiritual truth. The spiritual truth is this. The spiritual truth is that you get to, has nothing to do with Abraham's daddy or Abraham. This is Evelyn, this is James, this is Ron, this is all of us. You get to a crossroads in your life where you have to make a decision whether you are going to serve the God on this side of the river or other, whether you're going to stay in religion or whether you're going to seek to find out who you are. Embark on the journey to understand who you are. This has nothing to do with Abraham that the Jews worship or hold in high esteem. It has nothing to do with a natural man at all. It has everything to do with mankind, period. These are spiritual concepts that are told in an allegory or in story form so that they could be transferred from generation to generation. And what happened is we got caught up with people who pure academicians translating scriptures and feeding them to us as though these people exist and we have to be like them. That's not it at all. The only reason it was translated the way it was is because there was ignorance on the parts of those who did the translations and the parts of those who did the teachings to us about the scriptures. There was no confusion at all with the people who wrote these scriptures or wrote these stories. There was no confusion at all with the people who told these stories from generation to generation. I'm not going to get into it because it's not necessary. However, I want to share this with you. The same story that's told about Abraham and his daddy, you can find the same story that comes out of Kemet, out of Egypt. The exact same story. The exact same story that's told about Jesus, you can find it in Kemet. So what am I saying? From the beginning of time, these stories have been told in every culture for the purpose of informing each generation of the spiritual journey that is available to them if they choose to take that journey. Does that make sense to you?
yes, sir, and I hear you. I hear you.
I have a question.
Sure.
You were saying that Abram had his name changed, Sarah had her name changed, and they added the hey. But I'm wondering about Terah's name. it already had the hay. So how does that fit?
You say Sarah?
Terah or Terah, Abraham's father.
Abraham's father. Okay. Abraham's father represents religion. He represents an area that was steeped in religion. It represents, let me put it this way, Abraham's father represents Christianity. In the midst of Christianity, there is spirit. Yet that spirit, the spiritual essence in the midst of it, is overshadowed by the rituals of it. And if it were not spiritual essence in the midst of religion, then the questions that we have would not have arisen. If it had been pure religion without any spiritual essence in the midst of it, you cannot live in this earth without having spiritual essence, because that's who all of us are. However, you can ignore it. And what happened in this case is no different than what happened with Christianity. The questions came, and we were at a crossroads, and we did what we did in terms of deciding to travel the journey. Back with what we call Torah. That was simply a religious setting, and in that religious setting, we are told that when you're in that situation, you get to a crossroads in your life, and you have to make a choice about your direction that you're going in. When you choose to travel the journey to find yourself in spirituality, then the masculine and femininity in you is you begin to recognize it as being spiritual. That's the hate. Does that make sense, Audrey?
Okay, so the hay, so you could get the hay if you're Baptist, and then you might move to be charismatic. But if you get stuck in the charismatic church, then it's still religion.
Yes, ma'am. It's still religion. Anything that does not move to a place to see who you were created to be is religion.
The other thing we talked about yesterday was the fact that, don't let me lose my train of thought right now. I'm sorry, lost it. It'll come back.
Okay, can I add something?
We were talking about everything. We were talking about there's no secular and spiritual, that everything is spiritual. And whether I'm aware of it, as you're saying, whether I'm aware of the masculinity and the masculine and feminine energy and the way they interact and that they are both me, if I'm not aware of it, that does not mean that they are not embedded in the creation itself. It's just that the degree to which I'm aware of it is what propels me, if you will, further on the spiritual journey of knowing and understanding myself. So that's why there can be the essence of spiritual things in religion and in the church. But the essence of spiritual things do not mean that there are not lost people sitting there who don't know who they are, because they've not come to that awareness and knowledge of that they are both masculine and feminine from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah, and this kind of says the same thing, I guess, in a different way. But think about this: you have to be on a journey to come to a crossroad. You have to be on a journey. So you reach something. In other words, you have different principles you see in your head, and truth is there or trying to awaken you as well. So that crossroad is you're sitting there and you're contemplating, which way do I go with this? Now, as one of the writers, the thing I read about hay, the hay there, that hay is breath, and it is this breath that shows you the path. It is this breath that teaches you or shows you the matter of meditation. it is this breath that you see the awareness, you become awareness of self, and you see Jehovah and recognize that there is no difference. So to some, that is a journey that they decide not to take, but it doesn't mean that they don't see what it is, and for whatever reason decide to take or stay the course that they're already on. But the hay is available to anyone who that's out on this journey and have a desire to know. So if that helps a little bit, I think I
Yeah.
kind of said the same thing.
Yeah, it does, Ron.
The other thing I want to say, and this may not even fit in what we're talking about, but it kind of does, I think. We read all this, and there's other documents or books or whatever that talks about the oneness of the oneness of Abram and Sarah, and because look at it in Scripture, it doesn't really highlight Sarah, but I think I missed it anyway. If you look at the two times that, like the first one here in Genesis 12, when they go down into Egypt because of a famine, the famine is again, everything's a desert. No one's having any spiritual insight. People are starving for to hear from heaven, to hear from God, and to know. So there is no one to, if you will, to cultivate the earth. So it becomes a desert. It becomes a dry, parched land. So they head down into Egypt, and at this time he is Abram and she is Sarah, and he looks at her and says, "I know that you are beautiful." In other words, I recognize, I have intimacy with you, and I recognize that you are my balance. So it's something that that is very important, and again, it takes place later when he goes to, I forget the other land, Neviv, is it? And he says to her again, "Tell them that you are my sister." And the second time it happens, her name and his name have been changed. The hay has been added. So there's a spiritual significance to both of those things happening before the name change and after the name change. What it is, I don't see it yet. Maybe we talk it out, or maybe it's not time to talk about it. But I just thought I like that because it shows the masculine and the feminine energy being one. And him recognizing who she is in his life. And again, these are energies. It's not so much who she is, but a recognition of his spiritual side, his feminine and spiritual side.
Not only that, Ron, but if you remember back then when you had to send Esau away, and he did that because of was her? Am I getting that wrong with Rebecca? But anyway,
no.
When Sarah asked him to send her away, he understood that who she was in a sense, in terms of his relationship. So it was even back then that he took the counsel of that part of himself that said, okay, there's going to be an infighting if I don't do this. I've got to do this. So again,
Can I speak to that allegorically?
Okay.
He was searching on this. I'm on this journey. I'm traveling, searching for myself, and I began to get a glimpse of me in terms of being spiritual. And I'm guided now to a different place because I'm searching. And I end up in Mark Sharona's ministry. And in Mark Sharona's ministry, there's a different spiritual birth within me. And eventually I began to see that it does not fit for who I am or what I'm searching for. That's Hagar and Ishmael. I have to send that away from me. And what does that is a recognition. It is the counsel that I've been receiving from the feminine aspects of who I am that said this is not quite it. And when that happens, the journey continues. And that's when the Isaac comes into play. That's when I began to question, am I doing the right thing? Am I traveling the right journey? Because I've been in this setting and I'm out of it now. And I thought that was the way to go because I was counseled to go that way as Sarah counseled Abram to go that way with Hagar. Are you following me? Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm there and I'm traveling this journey, and then I began to see something. I began to see that the good intentions of those who are following charismatic ministry are not the intentions of those who are leading charismatic ministry. I began to see that leadership in charismatic ministry is moving to a place where it's getting financially wealthy, and the people who they are leading are searching for themselves, and they think they have found their spiritual identity, only to find out later that this is not it. It's further than where I was, but it's not where I should be. Neither one of them fulfills me in seeing who I actually was created to be. So now, I'm not charismatic. I'm not Protestant. I'm not Catholic. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Muslim. I am on a spiritual journey, meaning the ancestors are guiding me, and I had to visit that in order to be prepared to lead others down this pathway. And here I am now. I am not under the directorate of anyone other than the Creator itself. And being under the directorate of the Creator itself, I could continue this journey, yet it does not mean that I won't have flashbacks or that I won't have desires to, as Evelyn spoke about earlier, to return to where I came from. Or I won't have flashbacks to where I was in charismatic ministry, especially with all the offers that were given. Yet, there was something in me that told me not to accept that because it was not righteous. Now here I am. Does that mean that I'm self-righteous? No, it doesn't. It means that I'm righteous because of my pure desires, not only to know who I am, but to help others to see who they are as well, so that all of us can be ancestors, traveling this journey, bringing into existence a spiritual nation that being recognized as balance for the whole of humanity. Does that make sense, guys?
It does, and
Yes.
what I heard you say in your explanation is those moments that we do have flashbacks and think about those things, but when we let them die, when we voluntarily let that cease and end, it does open up another aspect of our journey. It gives us a different place, a different level of awareness, for lack of a better term, I guess. So that's, just kind of further supports what we're reading, what we're seeing here. And I think that's what I kind of heard you get into when you were kind of explaining that.
How does that relate to dying daily?
Say again?
How does that relate to dying daily?
My explanation is to that is, or take a shot at it anyway, as Charles would say. When we understand what Sabbath is, we have the opportunity to not die daily, not only die daily, but die as often as necessary. We look at it and we see it to mean rest, but it is the same as the journey that we are explaining right now. I sat at my workstation today, and I was going over aspects of this lesson, and I was thinking about some stuff and some words I had looked up, and I was trying to remember. And when it hit me, I smiled, and I did not see my boss walk up. And he said, "Ron, where were you?" He said, "I saw you smiling. Where were you?" And I told him about the lesson. I explained it to him. And he said, "Wow." He said, "I never thought of the scriptures as being an allegory." And he started asking me questions. And we sat there and talked about it. So I left for a while. And that's that's the die daily to me. Although I was busy doing a task, my rest was not a part of who I was at the time. It was what I had to do, but I was not there doing it. So I think
what I was referring to also was when you said that these flashbacks, we have to let them die. In other words, is that the same as dying daily? Meaning we don't give them life. We don't meditate on them. Is that what you're saying? Is that what this dying daily kind of thing means, in a sense? Not dying to those things that distract us and would seem to take us on a detour from our journey, our spiritual journey.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Hello?
Any questions, y'all?
Yeah, I
Does this
have a
make
question.
sense? Okay.
So when we talk about religion, when we were talking about going to Egypt, is religion considered as Egypt? Because isn't Egypt bondage or something like that?
Honestly, Evelyn, I'm not even sure that Egypt should have been there at all. That's some research that I got to embark on.
Okay.
Because the word that was translated Egypt means a cramped space. But does that mean that word that was translated was actually referring to Egypt itself? I doubt it very seriously. However, before I say anything about it definitively, I need to do some research, or we need to do some research to see where, if it's there for real. That's all.
Because when you talk, I'm sorry.
I'm encouraging all of us to look for that to see if it's supposed to be there. Okay?
Yeah, because when you talked about the famine in Egypt, when it's saying famine, meaning there's no spirituality at all, or, yeah, is that what that means, the famine?
Yes. But again, I don't want to look at that as a group of people being carried into Egypt to save their lives. The post is only talking about what it's actually talking about is you being in a cramped space. When your back is against the wall, that's when you start searching for spiritual truth. That's when you start the whole concept of there are no atheists in a foxhole, that kind of thing. When you're in a tight space, you start crying out for the Creator, for deliverance. I can see that more so than I can see a group of people going into a city or a country called Egypt when everything else is an allegory. So why would that not be? And since if you look at the translation, that should have, instead of Abraham, it should have been translated exalted father for Abram and father of nations for Abraham. That's what that means. That's not he is that, but that's what it actually means. So the literal translation of that would have been exalted father, and his character changed to a father of many nations. So I don't buy into the idea that they were talking about Egypt being a ruthless country as they have projected it to be. Thank you.
I would tend to agree, because when you think about Egypt and you think about a cramped space and you think about the womb and what the womb does, it provides for nourishment and protection while that entity is being developed. And as the entity continues to develop, it allows almost for meditation in a sense. Look where we are. Look where we are.
Yeah.
Look what's happened to us as a nation. We've forgotten the Creator who created us. And it just gave them a point of, it's almost like one of those moments where it was a pause so that they could actually do the introspection of how they lost the way on the spiritual journey, in a sense. At the same time, what cramped them, nourished them, and gave them some modicum of protection while they were introspecting.
And that's the part. Just let me add this part here, please. That's the part I was thinking about, Barbara, place of protection. Because if you look at this, from the beginning of the journey all the way up until the birth of Jesus, everybody has to go to Egypt. And it is a place of protection for all of them. The 12 sons had to go to Egypt. So for being a cramped space, it's more than that. It's not something negative at all. It turns out to be something positive. And I agree with Pastor. It's something we haven't quite understood yet or hadn't seen. And maybe it should not say Egypt, but it's something more there. And it's not something negative as I think or we have been taught that it's supposed to be.
Ron, could it be something that engenders a struggle within you for a desire to know yourself or to know who you are?
Who you are.
I can see that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's what go forth means. Go find yourself. Go to you. I hope this is all making sense. Is any questions, y'all? Any part that you want to go over again? Or questions
This
about?
is Ramel. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Barbara was describing Egypt. Is when she said is a place where a cramped space where we're have time to reflect or look inside ourselves. Is that what COVID provided us, that time of COVID?
Most definitely.
Was that certainly our cramped space?
And go ahead, Pastor. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, all I want to add is that really is a great example, because if you think about it, to some it was a negative thing, and to some it was positive. That cramped space caused some to commit suicide. It was a very uncomfortable place to be in mentally, but to others, it was a release. It was a place to expand yourself. It was a place to take a rest. And I don't mean from in a physical way. If you opened your eye and saw what was happening to the world, it really expanded you. With the ocean cleansing itself and the pollution going away and seeing the response of the animals and just mankind. I mean, it was very refreshing, but to some it was not. So I can see now this thing called Egypt. It may have been punishment for some in a way, depending on how you look at it, but it could also be enlightenment and beauty to someone else, which is however you purpose yourself to look at it.
Where's the time to take inventory?
Yeah.
It's the time to see if you believe what you say you believe. It's the time to see if you trust what you say you trust. It's a period to see how much you really were, how clearly, rather, you were seeing who you are in regards to being spiritual. Were the things that you had been taught, that what you were told spiritual, able to sustain you without you losing it? Were you able to face these adversities that came along with COVID without feeling like you needed to go back to a building in order for you to be fulfilled, even though you have been taught all your life that the building is not the church? You are. So the question is, did you really believe that if you felt like you needed to gather in a structure in order to be one with the Creator? A lot of things took place then. And look at us. He gave us opportunity not only to take inventory, but he gave us opportunity to move further along this journey and dig deeper for understanding the wisdom that we have been afforded. It also brought us closer together as a unit, as a group of people who have made a decision that we are going to stay on this journey without regard to any possible consequences, which now we know there are any consequences to it, for the benefit of humanity, who see everything that we have deemed to be bondage as being a reward for them. That in itself has also caused people to look at and see that it doesn't care about them. So now what happened? The reason that things are the way they are in the job market, rather, is because of almost 2 million people died. Not only that, but people decide they're going to go into business for themselves. So all of these things are came into play with the with COVID. But most of all, what I see with this COVID is that it gave us opportunity to flood the macro with spiritual desire. And it resulted in people beginning to question everything and desire a better life for everyone, which means that they are desiring a place of harmony. Does that make sense? At least that's how I see portions of it anyway. Thank you.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
I got a question, quick question. When you talked about dying, does that go back to dying to self daily?
Yeah, that's all. I think that's the thing to Jack is all that is the same thing. I really cut these things away from me. These no longer have that value in my life, and that's consciousness. Is what do you value? What do you see? What are you aware of about you, and what do you value? So these are things that I no longer value. These are things that I freely set free. My because my value has changed. I'm for lack of a better term, again, elevated in my thinking. I'm seeing more spiritual things, and as I do, I release all these other things. So the daily is not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The dying daily is talking about those periods of enlightenment. Those times when you could have 10 periods of enlightenment in one day. So it is not necessarily talking about I do this or in my Monday meditation, my Tuesday meditation. You constantly have the opportunity to live in that state of meditation. That's what that means.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else? Can anybody add to that or see it another way or clearer way? So where are we? So this whole thing, think about it. We started this off from Isaiah 58, looking at those verses, and what the conclusion is that let me find my glasses. It starts off in verses, if because the Sabbath you turn your foot from doing your own pleasures. All of that has been explained a little bit in what we've discussed already. The Sabbath is that journey. The Sabbath is not, again, like as the question Jackie has asked, it is not a period or a particular day. It is recognizing as you recognize that name has changed, and you have access, or you see yourself as being in a meditative state, and you recognize yourself, meaning that you see the spiritual side of yourself rather than yourself being a part of religion or something of that nature. You actually see your essence, and you're experiencing that for the first time, and you see that. So that is the Sabbath. You constantly have access to that. And the separation is not that I'm no longer close to these group of people. I don't think like the Baptists or whatever, so I don't associate with that. The separation is I have separated from myself. I have separated from those beliefs that I had. And in doing so, it opens me up. It opens me up to receive the more. It opens me up to a deeper place of enlightenment. So the rest is I cease from doing these things religiously, and I'm trying to remember what I think we were in Isaiah 1, where it talked about being beat up all the time in religion, not recognizing that you're being whipped from head to toe, and so that is all a part of the rest. I am freeing myself from that type of bondage, and I'm seeing something more. The interesting word here to me that I saw, if because of Sabbath you would turn your foot. Turn is talking about a journey too, or the same journey. If you notice this, whether you're looking at it from the point of repentance or not, turn is seeing the more. Think about it from the perspective of the prodigal son. His idea was, here I am laboring. I'm doing all this stuff at my father's house, and I'm under his authority, and look at what I could be doing. I have an inheritance. The whole world is mine. So his focus was on self, on pure selfishness, and not recognizing who and what he had. He could not see the total picture. But when he leaves and sees what awaited him while he was in that state, the turning part is the opening of the eyes. So the return never looks the same as the leaving. The turn part is much more enlightening. It is much more inviting. It is much more humbling. So as we go through this, all of that is a part of it. That turning also suggests that there had been a struggle. There had to be something that you left to come back to this. So all of that is a part of the journey. So even at times when we say, if these are things that I would change in my life, but all of those things have shaped you. All of those things that put you on this path, and so all of it is a part of the that help define who you are at this time. So it turn your foot from doing your own pleasure, and so all of this is talking about the same stuff that we've already discussed. And I think I'm just trying to see if I'm skipping anything. We talked about holy. Pleasure again is talking about fulfilling your own purpose or doing what matters to you, doing those things that pleases you. So just any questions about any of this, because what we have seen is this heritage of Jacob is talking about a path that we all take. This is saying that we all are energy, and this is what this energy looks like. So I establish names to it so you can readily see that there are other functions that this energy has that we define for you, so you know where you are. So it doesn't startle you when you get there. You know that this is normal. This is a part of your journey. Does this make sense, y'all?
When we go back to the heritage of Jacob, what is he saying? I will give you the heritage of Jacob. I will give you what you possess.
Yeah.
What Jacob possess? Jacob is talking about the opportunity to see religion and spirituality and making a choice about what you're going to do. Because he's speaking about holding something back. The propensity that we have for religion because of how we grew up and how we were taught, that desire is being held in check. That's the heritage of Jacob. It holds it in check, so you have the space to make the decision as to what you truly desire to do. Now, I don't think tonight is the time to do it. However, I would at some point run.
Yes, sir.
Look at the prerequisites for receiving this heritage, the heritage of Jacob. I would like to look at those prerequisites in relationship to what was that? What is it? Psalm 37. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Relationship to that scripture and this verse, I would like to speak to that at some point in detail.
Okay. We would do that. this may be a good place to pause, guys, but what do you think? Has it been clear? I hope so. Hope we see ancestors now clearer and understand that part. And I tell you what, for me, it really sort of brings a lot of what we've already discussed in bringing it all together, because all we've talked about tonight was the lesson we did on the 8th sense, how everything comes together, how your reflections and take you back and you tie all that together, how that strengthens you. So that's the beauty of this to me. And we see how it all ties together, and you can also see the actions of the earth and what is going on, what it all means and how it ties together, how things are being revealed. So good job. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you have thoughts and questions, please jot them down or send a text or something, and look forward to seeing you Saturday. Okay? Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Have a
Night,
good one.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Good night.